Hello, everyone, and welcome to this edition of the Untitled Anime Show, where on this episode we review Your Lie in April, and Sadar is here to tell us all about it. Sadar?
Well, Your Lie in April started as a monthly manga publication in the monthly Shonen magazine. And when it was picked up for an anime, it was produced by A1 Pictures Studio. It ran one season in 2015, and it centers on a piano prodigy named Kosei
Arama. Yep.
Arama, thank you, who had dominated the piano scene in his early childhood, the competitive piano scene, until his mother's untimely death, after which he was unable to bring himself to perform publicly again. And 2 years later, when we meet him, is just before he meets a young woman named Kaori. Corey?
Cowrie, yeah.
I'm horrible with names. You have to forgive me. And she begins to urge him to dip his toes back into the competitive piano performance scene.
Okay. Well, Duck, you're the one that picked this episode, so you build it to us as this is one of my favorites. This is in my top 5. This is the ones I tell people to watch when they're getting into anime. So why don't you lead the way with this one? What do you want to tell us about that we don't already have from the very librarian-esque synopsis from Sadar?
So one of the best parts of this is it deals with the psychological problems he had after he lost his mother. His mother physically abused him, and every time he didn't get a note right when he was practicing piano. And then when she died, he finally stood up to her the day she died.
Yeah, not only did he stand up to her, he actually wished death upon her, and his wish was fulfilled.
And then suddenly he couldn't hear the notes anymore. And it was like, this huge thing that this child genius was never able to play again. And then, once he meets Kaori, or Kiori, I'm bad with names too.
It's the Japanese names. You can't get them right.
You're in good company.
She slowly starts to build him up, and he's Kaori. Yeah. He slowly starts to come back and, build himself there. And there's this whole love triangle going on. It is not normally my cup of tea. It's kind of weird that I like it as much as I do, but I think overall the whole, at the end of the story, I think it becomes, the whole thing is worth it to watch at the end.
So this qualifies, I believe, into the slice of life category.
Yes.
In that there's nothing fantastical going on. We have the simple life of middle school kids. That's what it is. It's the life of middle school kids, and there's an extraordinary occurrence in their life that's going on. But there's nothing fantastical about it. It's not an isekai by any stretch of the imagination. It's not a fantasy. It's not a harem. This is just a slice of life. It revolves mostly around 4 different characters that are in just getting ready to graduate from middle school into high school, which is a big deal in Japanese schools as well as American schools. But the overarching story is of the main character learning to get back into competitive piano playing. So, as always, we score everything 1 through 5 in 5 different categories, and we changed up our categories for this episode. Now we will be scoring on originality, story, artwork, depth, and bingeability. So let's start with Duck. Duck, let's go with originality. You gave this a 4.
Yeah. So I don't think you could tell me this premise and I would get it mixed up with any other anime. Never heard of anything like this. I don't know too much about the slice of life genre, so I don't know if it's a run of the mill slice of life, but I don't know really anything that's ever been about, competitive piano playing. So I gave it a 4. But it could lose points here if it's like other slice of life anime. I just really haven't watched any.
Okay, Sadar, you scored this with a 3 for originality. Can you explain why you gave it a 3?
Sure. Well, first, I just want to mention that I do think it was very brave of the creators of the anime to fill as much of the time on the episodes as they did with full classical music performances. And I guess that should give them some points for originality, but I docked them because I didn't think that there was a whole lot of life building in the story, I guess. There wasn't a whole lot of new to the life of a middle schooler in any of this. I thought it was kind of a run of the mill story. I mean, it's just like it's middle school.
It's middle school.
It's middle school. It's middle school life.
So
if you've lived through middle school, there you have it.
So I gave this a 3, and the reason I gave it a 3 was not that there's a whole lot of not that the competitive piano playing genres is being overdone, but if you take out the you take out the piano and change it up with anything else, change it up with a kid playing on a baseball team. We've heard this story 100 times. It's just being told with a new aspect to it, and that is competitive piano playing, which still, like Sadar said, very challenging to try and make that interesting for people that aren't into classical music. So I didn't just pound it into oblivion, but I did give it a 3. For story, all 3 of us gave it a 3 across the board. Let's go back to Duck. And why did you? This is one of your favorites. Why are you only giving it a 3?
Because I like the overall arching story, but like Sadar was talking about, I don't like the middle school life, the life of an average middle schooler. So, there were chunks in there where, and this is my second, well, technically third watch of this, and there was times where I just was like, not fully focusing on it because I was just waiting to get to the next flashback or fleshing out Kosei's backstory and everything. So yeah, that's why I took points off for story here, because some chunks of the story are kind of boring.
Okay. Sadar, you gave this a 3, obviously, so I want to explain your decision.
Sure. Well, piggybacking off of what you said a minute ago, it's a story that's been told many times, just with different focal points. But also, I found myself getting mad at the story a lot. I mean, it wasn't just Kosei's mother who was abusive to him, and she was incredibly abusive, along with every other woman that this poor kid encountered. I mean, I don't think there was a female character in this entire anime who didn't punch him or kick him or smack him around at some point. And I didn't think that made for good entertainment.
No, we run into the trap in anime where the female characters, it's okay for them to beat up on the male characters. And you have the anime trope of I'm going to walk into the bathroom and there's my female acquaintance taking a bath. It happens so often, but it's a trope at this point. It's like, oh, you saw me naked, I'm going to punch you in the face. Okay, I walked in on you and I was naked. You were just minding your own business. How dare you? I'm still going to punch you in the face. So, but it's, culturally, it's, men never hit a woman, but women beat the crap out of the men every chance you get. So it's just, it definitely, the poor kid was getting the crap beat out of him. There wasn't an episode that went by that this kid shouldn't have been in the ICU. But I gave it a 3 for story, and it just was not keeping me. It drug. I was struggling to get through it. I was watching episode after episode after episode only because we wanted to review it for the show, so we had to get through it. And I was literally like forcing myself. And not just to focus on my Switch that was in my hand. I think the series was maybe twice as long as it had to be. I think they could have cut. I think they could have cut it in half and still got the story across. It wasn't as though they were trying to build to this grand crescendo. See, music reference, huh? But it just was just dragging way too long. Sadar? If you had to cut this in half, do you think they could have kept the story intact?
I think they could have kept the story intact. They couldn't have gone as deep as they did into the poor kid's desperate need for therapy.
Yeah. Like you were saying about the mother, I wanted to reach the TV and strangle the mother, and I wanted to slap the hell out of the kid for trying so hard to appease this demonic figure in his life.
I do want to say one thing about his mom, though, and that's just that towards the end of the series, they did redeem her a little bit in that she was an incredibly loving, thoughtful, caring, protective mother until she got sick. And then the reason that she was so desperate to make Kosei into such a wonderful piano player was she thought it was, with the time she had left, it was her only way of providing for her child, was giving him the skill. I'm not defending child
Yeah,
abuse.
it was a stretch. It was a stretch, and I saw it as that. Yeah, we're trying to redeem the character. I knew what they were doing. I just didn't buy it.
Same for me,
Fair
Raz.
enough.
So, anyway, back to artwork. We had some varying stuff across this. Duck, you gave this a 5 out of 5.
Yeah, so the way when sometimes when the music is playing, they they made the music seem personified in the colors that showed while they played. And overall, I just think like they made the whole city and everything with like the cherry blossoms flowing and just a good mix of colors that I'm not used to seeing in many anime unless somebody's casting like a magic spell or something. So that I liked how they didn't have any of those fantastical aspects, but they still managed to bring lots of bright color and life to the world. So that's why I gave it a perfect 5 out of 5, because from what I've seen in anime, I've never seen, that kind of color scheme.
Now, see, I gave it a 3 out of 5, and what you're saying, I really did enjoy the pastels, the way that when they were like playing the piano or the violin in some cases, they the focus they put on the hands, and the fact that everything looked real but it was very fluid was great. I couldn't give it more than a 3 though, because one, there was certain aspects of the way the characters were drawn that really just bothered me. I have never seen this ankles that small in my life.
I didn't notice that.
They look like they're all walking around on toothpicks. Toothpicks that have shoes on the end. But the other thing is, it seemed like there was 2 different studios making this. One scene would look like it was drawn one way, and then in the very next scene, it looked like it was a completely different set of artists. It looked like it was 2 production companies trying to make something that looked the same, and it wasn't the transitions between scenes weren't fluid. And it really just kind of took you out of it, because you start to get immersed into it when these big numbers are going on with, like you said, like when they're trying to show you music through color, and then it would switch to another scene and just boom, it was just very jarring from a visual standpoint. Sadar, you gave this a 2 out of 5, so you gave the worst score of all.
I did. I have to admit, I really liked the way that the whole environment changed when the music was being played, and the music changed the background of the characters. But there were too many things that were consistent throughout the series that just bothered me. One of them was I hated the way everyone's mouths were drawn. It distracted me in every scene that had somebody's face in it.
Wait a minute. Every scene that had someone's face.
Yeah.
That's pretty much every scene.
So she's pretty much distracted the whole time.
Yes. And the only thing that was more distracting than especially Corey's mouth was
Cowries
mouth. She had the worst of the bunch. But Kosei's glasses, it bothered me that whenever we had a side profile picture of him, suddenly
this was missing. Yeah, this right here was missing. It took me a while to figure it out. It actually did. I'm like, what? Oh, they're making it so I can see his eye.
I thought that was just an anime trope, because we're even going to talk about this in the next episode, but of the show. But
yeah, it completely. It actually took me a minute to realize, like, how is his glasses on? And then like when you see him from a different angle, then they'd have the full bar on there, the full
Yeah.
arm. So it was like, oh, they're just cutting it out so you can see his eyeball. Got
I
it.
thought it was like an anime thing where it was important to see their eyes.
It usually is, but I've never seen them use that method. I'm sure it
Yeah,
probably.
they instead of doing like this, they could have done a profile like this, but no, they just decided to change his glasses for close-up shots of the side of his face, and it was
A lot.
weird.
Dude had a lot of close-ups of the side of his face. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Okay, so going back to the scores, depth. We all scored this pretty harshly. I gave it a 1 just because I like anime because I usually can't tell what's going to happen. I went when I studied in school was filmography, videography, graphics, photography, and I cannot enjoy most television because most television, especially it plays in the United States, has a 3-act structure to it. It's very linear, and you can tell week after week what's going to happen as soon as the show starts. In anime, typically that's not the case. Anime, they're not afraid to kill off a main character. Halfway, 3 episodes in, you think this is the one. He's in the intro even, dead. But in this, I saw every single thing coming. There was not a single surprise in the whole show. The big crescendo and the big payoff at the end. Yeah, like 4 episodes in, it's like, yeah, that's what's gonna happen. It was not a surprise at all. So Sadar, why'd you give this a 2 out of 5?
The reason I scored this so harshly was, yeah, I don't claim to be very good at predicting shows, but this one was very predictable. But I just felt so drugged down by the over attempt and the incredible struggle to sound deeper than what it is with all of these deep philosophical evaluations of the music and the meaning behind everything and the meaning of life. And maybe that's just what middle schoolers do when they're looking at moving on to high school. I don't know.
I don't remember contemplating the
But
meaning of life.
but I didn't find myself in that song ever. And I didn't, mused myself about how anybody's eyes were like cherry blossoms in springtime or anything like that. And it just seemed a little overdone, a lot overdone.
A lot overdone. So Duck, you also gave this a 2 out of 5.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I guess I kind of go with what you guys are saying. It's
Oh, I agree.
Yeah. Because I can't relate to the characters, it's hard to really get dragged in to the story, and like easy to predict what's going to happen. You can make a pretty good guess that it's 50-50 chance of what of how the story is going to play out, and it plays out the way that's a little bit more convincing that that's where it's going to go.
So after we give the overall score, I'm going to tell you exactly what I thought by 3 episodes in. So, but we'll get to that in a second because I'm gonna save the spoiler for the very end. So when we get back to scores, for bingeability, I scored it the harshest with a 2, just because I was struggling to watch the bloody thing, let alone get into binging it. There was a couple episodes where I was like, okay, I do want to watch the next one to see what they're gonna do with this, but they were few and far between. You both scored it a 3 out of 5. So Duck, why did you give it the score you did?
Just because I scored this one the way I've scored others. It's watch for a couple episodes. Even when I first watched it, it was just watch a couple episodes, and that's it. Before you fall asleep, before after you wake up, just a couple episodes, and then go about your day.
Sadar?
Well, I'm going to say a little confession about Sadar. Sadar can just about binge anything. So a 3 should be considered pretty darn low for me. I did like the music in the series. I enjoy classical music. Usually I prefer violin to piano. But
normally I would say I enjoy classical music too, but there was this one Bach piece they kept playing for like 3 episodes that just, even when it's played correctly, it sounds horrible. Just my opinion, but they could have picked a different piece, I think.
But I thought it was a good binge as long as you have your phone nearby. How's that?
Ooh, that's cold. That's cold. So after we take all of our scores together, with Duck given a 5 out of 5 on artwork, it kind of throws the curve a little bit. But we end up with a 2.8, which in the Untitled Anime Show, I don't deal with fractions, so we round up or down. In this case, we end up giving it 3 violins out of 5. So, final words on this. Do you go out and watch it on Crunchyroll or Netflix right now? Or further into your self-quarantining, because depending on when you're watching this, where this is during the coronavirus quarantine. So, Duck, which you go out and watch it now, or just put it on the back burner?
I say put it on the back burner unless it sounds what we said sounds interesting, and then go ahead and give it a watch.
Sadar, does it go in your queue, or are you watching immediately?
I would say if you're in middle school, if you're a big fan of The Fault in Our Stars, or you have a passion for snuff films, put it in your queue now. Otherwise, it can go on the back burner.
Ouch. Yeah, with me, if we say, do I watch it now? Do I put it in my queue, or do I just forget it even exists? Yeah, I wouldn't waste my time. I did not care for this. I literally, the only reason I watched it is because it was Duck's pick, and we had to watch it so that we could rate it. And
okay, stop laying on the blame. I mean, Duck's a good guy.
No, I'm not. No, don't misinterpret this. I do not blame Duck for this. Everyone is gonna like something different. No one's gonna like everything I like.
I'm not taking offense to this.
That is the purpose of this. That is the purpose of this show, so that we can learn what we like and what we don't like. Because some people are gonna say, "I really like this show," and they're gonna follow Duck's recommendations from now on. Or some people are gonna say, "Yeah, you're right. That was the drizzling craps. I'm gonna follow Raz from now on." Or I'm kind of in the middle of the road. I liked it in some places, I didn't. I'm going to go with Sadar. So, thank you for watching. Sadar, what's the next show we're going to review on the Untitled Anime Show?
The next show we're going to review is Tanya the Evil.
The Saga of Tanya the Evil.
Sorry.
Well, no, you get it right, because this is absolutely one of my favorite animes. As you can tell from the screen, it's under favorite anime for Raz. It lists Tanya the Evil. Now, it does change from time to time, but Tanya is always going to be in my top 5. So we look forward to talking to you next week on the Untitled Anime Show. Thanks for watching.
Good night.